Here we are, broadcasting again, Leanne, from Blackfella Radio via the Australia Council. People have been saying, oh, that's a bit of a silly thing to say, Wesley. And I go, well, I say some silly things sometimes. Leanne, you're the one who actually says all the important things, I reckon.
Stop it.
It's true. I'm the silly one. You're the serious, thoughtful one. Maybe we could swap one week where I'm the thoughtful, serious, angry man, and you could be the...
Are you suggesting I'm an angry black woman?
Oh, no. No, I think I'm saying it outright. I think that's being said outright. No. Well, look, if you want to be, these are choices we get to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have this feeling like, when people say, oh, you're so angry, and you go, you don't even know half of it.
You ain't saying nothing, yeah.
This isn't even angry, my friend. This is me just putting forward an argument. But it is interesting, isn't it, that if you put forward a persuasive argument, people think that that's anger. No, that's not anger. That's me being passionate and thoughtful about what's going on.
Mm.
Talking about thoughtful and passionate people, there's Alec O'Halloran again. Good to see you. And Alison. Denise, wonderful to have you here. Louise Wellington, great to have you. Sharina Clanton, God, you've been like to every single one, I think, Sharina. Good to see you there. Sharina's saying hello to Gina there and all the mob from the other side, or have a little chat. If you'd like to say hello, just pop in the little chat box there and say hello to everyone. There's about 23 of us online at the moment as we all kind of gather together. Stephen Stank, good to see you. Sarah Jane Moore, hello. Oh, Nick, our captioner. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming on board and helping us out to get our message across. Leanne, a big week. Some interesting things going on.
Yes, it has been a big week. Another big week for us.
Waiting to see this package come from the Prime Minister.
Mm. So is that announcement imminent? Or if there is something coming? Or because I saw something on the news this morning that, it's going to the Prime Minister.
That's what I'm hearing. Valerie, hello from Yarrabah. I hear Yarrabah's open now, Valerie, which is good. Lots of communities opening up now after being closed for the COVID-19 period. Look, yes, I heard yesterday that the Prime Minister took a meeting with people from the music industry in particular, and also other, a lot of commercial producers and presenters. It's interesting today too that I heard Dan Teenan, the Education Minister, talking about making university more expensive, especially in the humanities and arts, that in fact we could see an increase in humanities and arts HEX costs of 103%. 103% rise in the cost of doing a humanities degree, which is, when you're training artists and you're bringing artists into the world, that can be something that they never get to pay back, and as something they carry around for God knows how long. Jason Passfield coming into the room. Rick Brayford, oh, good to see you, Rick. Thank you for joining us here. Tom Pritchard I saw coming through. Vanessa Russ. And so this sense of going, how do we get more support for artists during this time? And it just doesn't seem to be occurring. But as I was saying before, I keep hearing about this package, this arts package that will come from the federal government. I hope the Australia Council gets some of that at least to help distribute to the small to medium sector, because...
Well, that's what concerns me, absolutely. And, we know that music had a 27 million package earlier, probably 2 or 3 months ago. 7 million to visual arts, to remote community arts centres.
I understand a lot of that money was bringing announcements earlier rather than new money. That's a lot of it anyway. So it was things that they were expecting a bit later.
Mm.
Yeah. And the Australia Council, it's interesting that the large companies are out there hawking their wares and saying we need to be looked after, and good on them that they need that. But there's not a lot of large companies in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander arts and cultural area. Bandara being the exception there, and a few galleries, but still not a... how are we going to look after the small to medium sector, the independent artists and the small collectives? That'll be a very important, interesting thing to go forward.
For sure. What was the research? The we were mentioning yesterday, 71% of Australians think that the arts is not a essential service.
This is not actually, as I did some research, it's from the Sunday Times. So I'm assuming that the Sunday Times is the UK publication. And they were saying that, yes, 71% of those surveyed believed that artists were non-essential workers. It was the highest non-essential worker category they found out. And I know on social media, people were going, but do they not read? Do they not listen to music? Do they not live in a world that's totally designed? Do they not, watch Netflix? I mean, this whole idea of what is essential. What I think it is really about how are we invisible? Maybe that's the bigger issue.
Yeah, there's a different way of, I think, looking at it, different perspectives of looking at it, and not just one way. But it's also, there's a lot of work to do in the education system, isn't there? We've got, generations of young people or, students coming through who are engaging in the arts at such a young age. What's the first thing a child does?
Yeah. Well,
that first physical creative expression of a child, isn't it, is the marking, the creative expression.
Yeah.
And how do we lose that? Why do we lose that through the process of an education?
Well, interesting, looking at some figures when I was running the Queensland Theatre Company, we were saying that we actually get lots of young people, mostly brought to us by school groups and engaging in very specific activities, but you do lose people out when they go into their 20s and 30s, but often return then in their 40s, return back to the arts. It's coming up to 2:05. We've got about 35 people in the room. Remembering that this is all being recorded, folks, so you can actually watch it later. I know lots of people come online and watch it at their convenience later on. Catherine Lake, good to see you here. Davina, lovely to see you. Good to see you in the room. Lots of Jessica Clark, Louise Wellington. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation about signature works. We've got about 37 people in the room now. And I think we might be ready to start. What do you think, Leanne?
I think we should start, Wesley.
Well, let's do that.
Let's start our Friday afternoon.
Excellent. Hello and welcome everyone back. This is our 14th roundtable. My script tells me, Leanne, we've been doing 14.
Oh, it is 14.
14.
Wow.
What happened to 13? Did we
I think we jumped a number, didn't we?
Well, that's because it's unlucky. Or is that some form of racism? You didn't want to have a black one, a Black Friday on the 13th. Nah, too much, Wesley. Shut up. So this one is number 14, and we're looking at signature works. Thanks everyone for joining us and being part of this ongoing discussion and looking after it, everyone. I'm Wesley Enoch. Great to have you here. I'm the chair of the First Nation Strategy Panel, and I'm joining her, the wonderful Tjunypa Buckskin, Deputy Chair of the Australia Council of the Arts. Leanne, lovely to be spending Friday afternoon with you again.
Always a pleasure, Wesley Enoch.
Well, we might hand over to you to do acknowledgement of country for us.
Thank you, Wesley. Thank you. Look, I just want to acknowledge that I sit on the land of the Kaurna people, who are the traditional owners of the Adelaide Plains, down here south of our beautiful big country. I pay my respects to Kaurna people, their elders, both past, present and emerging. And I also acknowledge all of you who are joining us and all of the beautiful country that you sit on around this big nation of ours. I pay my respects to you, to your elders past and present and emerging also, and also all of our ancestors who join us and walk with us every day. So handing back to you. Thank you, Wesley.
Oh, lovely. If we move to the next slide, please, Michelle. Just remembering that these roundtables have been going for 14 weeks now, over 3 months, and a chance to really gather and look after each other, to connect, to share, to have new ideas, to build our networks and to navigate. And that it's a great opportunity to gather together in this weekly way to look after each other and to make sure that we get a sense of, I don't know, a big support, if you like, of each other and get us through this particular period of time. And it feels like it's going well, Leanne. It feels like, you know, different things are lifting. There's already some travel between different jurisdictions now. And there's also a lovely little fight between Adelaide and Melbourne. You know,
don't you love that?
We love that.
A bit of banter between the states is and premiers is a good thing.
For those who didn't get to hear it, Steve Brax, wrong one, Wesley. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, the Premier of Victoria, when asked, you know, South Australia is opening its borders, his response was, well, why would you want to go there?
Would you want to visit Adelaide?
Why would you want to go to Adelaide? And then what was fantastic is the Adelaide Tourism Commission, or that body, then put an ad out online which used his quotes, you know, and said, it goes, Daniel Andrews goes, why would you want to go there? And it just shows all the reasons why you'd want to go. So it was very, very good. And
they were quick off the mark, weren't they,
quick,
in responding?
Very quick. Hey, some little comments already in the chat talking about what does it mean to be a non-essential worker, you know, in this world. And also this idea that we've got the federal government at the moment, they're really wanting to downplay the role of the arts, both in its funding, but also recently in the university funding conversation that just come out today, trying to make the training of artists and people doing humanities degrees, making that 103% more expensive than it has been. So your HECS debt would go through the roof. Pretty amazing things going on. And where is our debate? Where is our discussion? And as we said before we move to officially on the agenda, the idea too of there is a package apparently coming down the line, and we've been talking about it for ages. We'd love to see it. We might move to the next slide then, Michelle. Yes, the idea of things becoming elitist and maybe inaccessible. And what does that mean for First Nations artists? Actually, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we don't want to go to university. Maybe we want to look at apprenticeship models. Maybe we want to look at training and looking after artists in our communities in a different way. If you've got some thoughts, if you've got some ideas, whack them in the chat box. But just to talk through the agenda here, we'll do a bit of housekeeping in a second and tell you how to navigate the site. We'll go through what last week's webinar brought us with some of the great speakers that were talking there. And then we'll have our guests, Andrea James, Zane Saunders and Gina Williams, talking a little bit about their works, signature works too, which I'll explain about in a second. We'll have a little bit of panel discussion, talk about some resources, and talk a little bit more about what's going on at the next roundtable that we're doing, and a little bit of conversation that'll come out of your chat. Next slide, thanks, Michelle. So here we go. For those who haven't been here before, and there's about 45 of us in the room now, we've got a couple of different features. If you take your cursor and you move down, you'll see a little button that says participants. You can tap on that and you can see who's in the room. Along the way, there's chat. If you tap on that, a little chat box will open, and lots of people using it already. Catherine Lake saying she's curious, are there any Indigenous organisations, especially in Victoria, for teens for the theatre other than Ilbidgery? If you know the answer to that, if you're in Victoria and you know of Indigenous organisations looking after teens in theatre other than Ilbidgery, put a little answer there in the chat box to help us along the way. There's lots of different knowledges out there that we can tap into. Liana and I are not the font of all knowledge, though she's a very knowledgeable woman. Goodness gracious, you don't want to get in a Scrabble game with her. She'll just run you ragged. If you follow along the line then from the chat box, you'll see then something called Q&A. You can tap on that and you can put a very specific question in there that we can then ask the panelists or we can address. And there's also people in the back room, you know, behind the scenes, who can also give you very clear, distinct responses to things if you need them. And Nick, who's working on our closed captioning today, if you need, and I always get in trouble, Leanne, that I speak too fast and too much. And the poor captioners, I just have to slow down a little bit and let people kind of do the captioning, and especially if there were even Auslan interpreters, sometimes they go, oh, my fingers are sore from Wesley's talking. So some wonderful captioning there. If in fact the sound is not great on where you are now, or that listening, hearing is not your best way of taking in information, you'd rather read. That's all as well. A little thing in the chat there from Vanessa Russ. It's a real US policy. Attack anything that appears liberal. That's a small L liberal, as opposed to the party political liberal, and that might challenge conservative policies. It's the best way to stop universities from having schools of art altogether. Well, there's a conjecture. Get in there, have a bit of a go. And just a little note for everyone. Just, Vanessa, what you've done there is you've just talked to the panelists. If you go down in the chat box to the little blue tab, you can hit that and you can make sure you talk to all panelists and attendees. And that's really useful, so everyone gets to think about things. Davina Woods coming in and saying, arts and humanities enable people to think. Yes, well, goodness, we want more people to think. I think that's very important. All right, there's some housekeeping. Lots of regulars coming in this week as well, Leanne. Great to have everyone. And we might go to the next slide. Thanks, Michelle. And Leanne, I might hand over to you to just give us a little sense of what happened last week.
What happened last week, Wesley? Every week there is such amazing guests who present. Last week we had a focus on festivals, and we had three amazing people. Francesca Cabello, who is the chair of the Darwin Aboriginal Art Fair Foundation, talked through what the 2019 Darwin Art Fair is doing. It's an amazing event if you haven't been. It's held up there in Darwin, in the lovely convention centre. 70 participators. Sorry, I can't find my words today.
I've stolen them all.
I'm sort of getting a bit lip-tied there.
I've Captain Cooked your words there, love.
Look, it's an amazing event. It's an incredible arts fair that includes 70 art centres from all across remote Australia. Income goes back of $2.84 million that goes directly back to those art centres. Lots of visitors, lots of attendees, particularly, really engaging with people for the first time, I guess, in those spaces, connecting to artists and their art. It's a great learning environment. But anyway, they're looking at how they're going to run DAF, Darwin Arts Fair, on a website and through social and digital platforms. So we'll be watching in earnest to see how 2020 is delivered. Also, the next speaker was Sarah Bell from El Bidri. Sarah is the associate producer there. She gave an overview of what she's working on, APAM, which is the Australian Performing Arts Market. Gave an overview of their principles, what First Nations means to that event. They talked about, talked about that First Nations are central, sustainable, equitable, reciprocity, experimentation, artist-centric, Asian-focused. So that's just all of those principles that wrap First Nations up into the APAM event. She highlighted that APAM's gatherings happen at established festivals all across Australia, but also internationally. It's a really great way for First Nations people to really develop their networks and potential to tour in particular. There is expressions of interest for APAM gathering, and that will open in late this year. So I dare say that there is a website for that, which we should get perhaps someone to put up in the webinar chat as to where you can look out for that event. The final speaker that we had was Nikki Cumpston. Nikki is the artistic director of Tarnandi. Tarnandi is the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Visual Arts Festival that's held here in Adelaide every 2 years. It's a fantastic event. It's a curated event. It's hosted through the South Australian Art Gallery. It covers venues all across the city and regionally as well. If you haven't been to Tarnandi, please try and come here as soon as we can all travel again, that is. But Nikki spoke about Tarnandi, particularly for 2020. They're still trying to work out, I guess, the opportunity on how they're going to present the exhibitions for this year. Tarnandi also has an arts fair, albeit it's a curated arts fair, as a part of their event. She spoke of the importance of the work that's shared between the art gallery and Tandanya, and the many fantastic sharing and learning opportunities that have developed through there. Also importantly, and we were talking about this before, Wesley, was the importance of art and education as well, and that there is Tarnandi have developed a wonderful publication for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art in the classroom, and it has been an enormous success as a resource. So that is available on the Art Gallery of SA. They have sold out their first lot of publications, but there is a second run happening. So be assured that they will be available to everyone just a little down the track. There we go, Wesley.
Fantastic stuff. I saw Sarah Bell, who was speaking last week. She's in the room with us, and she's put up that website that you asked.
Oh, awesome! Thanks, Sarah.
See, you just say it, and it all happens. And we'll have a little chat here. Then Sharina Clanton coming in and having a chat with Catherine Lake about where is that theatre work or theatre support for young people in Victoria. If everyone has any suggestions, or whack them in, it's all there for us to look at. And please give us your thoughts, ask some questions, be interactive, which is very good. And talking about interactive, Leanne, we have a poll. We've got another poll. We did a poll last week. We're going to do one again now. I'll ask Renee to whack the poll up for us as it comes together. And this is your chance to answer a few questions. So grab your cursor and help us answer these questions so we can return things to you. So I can't vote. Oh, how's that work? Oh, what? They're taking away my legitimacy. They won't let me vote. What is this, pre-67? Nah, because I voted last week.
I did too.
So they won't let us vote again.
I went allowed, sorry.
But you out there now in the chat room, it's your time to vote. So here's a quick question. Would you like to see First Nations roundtables continue? Yes or no? Just hit the little circle, get the yes or no there. Now, Sharina, do it on the she already voted. Oh, well.
Good on you, Sharina.
More franchise for you. That's all I can say. Question number 2: how often would you like them to occur? Weekly, fortnightly, monthly, or quarterly? Whack an answer in there. What time frame should the format be? 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 7 days? No, they don't have 7 days there. 7-day format could be fun. Here's a new one. What day of the week would you like the First Nations roundtables to take place on? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Do you have a particular day that's better? I mean, lots of people talking about Fridays, Leanne, going Fridays are a great chance to come together and just share a little moment in the afternoon.
Yes.
So choose one of those. And what format you like to see? Interviews, panel discussions, just Leanne and I having a bit of a yarn? Oh, that would be beautiful. Also some panel discussions.
They might want to see new hosts, Wesley.
What was that, sorry?
I said they might want to see new hosts.
What? Oh, I'll take that personally. No, I won't. I think a good rotating chair, and it'd be lovely to get some more voices here as well. Ali Murphy Oates saying it's a lovely way to end the week. Oh, well, you know what to vote for then, Ali. What content would you like to see addressed? Creative practice, cultural knowledge, creative workforce, markets, digital, intellectual property, or topical news? Well, that could be interesting. And would you like to see the First Nations Roundtable live streamed on social media? What does that mean? We'd be talking live to Facebook. That could be interesting.
Well, it could be.
I always learn don't read the comments. Just don't read the comments. There are some hateful people in the world. So all the joy in the world, but there's some hateful people in the world. All right.
Yeah.
Has everyone's had a chance to answer all those questions? Okay, Renee, show us what came out the other end of it. Here we go. Oh, there we go. 100% of you said yes, you want to do it fortnightly. That seems to be the dominant one there. And 60 minutes. There we go. Will be our own 60-minute show. So many people saying Friday. Friday's the time for you. Okay. Don't change too much. Panel discussions are good. Leanne, you and I get a bit of a kind of thumbs up there.
Yeah.
Yes, here's interesting. So creative practice and cultural knowledge, really the high points there. Topical news, not far behind, and then creative workforce being the biggest part there. And and people want to see it live streamed. Well, the majority of you anyway, 70% of you. The Murray 60 Minutes, Jason Parsfield says. Well, we'd have to work out which one we're going to be, Murray's or Guris or Bummers or Yamaji, or we have to work out which 60 minutes we want to do. Okay, there we go. Louise Wellington saying, yes, please, can the roundtables keep going, and love all of those topics. Oh, well, great to get your feedback. Thank you so much. Leanne Vent, oh, good, you got it submitted. Oh, well, that's wonderful then. Just saw that she's saying, I can't submit. That's all right. It all seems to have worked. Okay, great. Thanks for that, Leanne. Right, talking about the other Leanne now. Here we are. Oh, Jesus, goodness gracious. Let's go to the next slide. I shouldn't take Jesus' name in vain there. Goodness. But just to say, we've got these three amazing panelists who will be talking about their work, their signature works. So Andrea James, Yorta Gunaikurnai, theatre maker. Zane Saunders, who's up there in Kuranda, who's an artist. And Gina Williams, Banadong Nunga Gitja person, who's a musician, but more than that too. I think she's, like Zane, got a whole lot of things that they do to keep their practice going. And they're all working on signature works at the moment. If we go to the next slide, thanks, Michelle. Just a little sense of what the signature works are. Oh, there we go. That this is something that's come out of the Australia Council. Leanne, do you want to talk a little bit about these signature works and what they mean?
Sure, Wesley. Yes, you're right. The signature works is a strategic initiative out of the Australia Council for the Arts. It looks at new creative works for and by First Nations artists. So it's working across performing arts, experimental and emerging arts, literature and visual arts. And it's been a wonderful way of bringing a cohort of people together to really sit down, I guess, for a week and be mentored by people who, professionals in their areas. What we do is bring those people together. We do a hot house or of a week of mentoring and workshopping these amazing creative ideas, and 3 of those we're going to hear of in a little bit. But it also gives us potential to identify some of those really big projects of scale that we would like to do and develop, which is not an instant thing. It is a slow process, a developmental process. So we look at increasing audiences and markets, both at a regional, national and international level. Again, this will be reflected through the speakers. It's also a new way of creatively brokering new models and hubs of artistic opportunities. So looking at investment, creative concepts and execution to distribution of those ideas. It increases pathways for artists, art workers, producers and presenters as well. It also brings about a deeper appreciation of the value of First Nations arts and cultural expression. And it has increased collaborations and presentations of really great new artistic works. It's increased investment in the development and presentation of significant and excellent works of scale across all art forms by First Nations artists and their organisations. And it's really strategically implemented a rapid growth of First Nations arts over our sector for over 5 years. And, you know, I've been a part of those. I think you have too, Wesley, where we've been a part of those environments, and it's so inspiring,
isn't it? I mean,
to watch an artist's process.
Agreed.
Of creativity,
and to watch that ambition being expressed, because I think sometimes we were talking about this earlier, there aren't that many large Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander organisations to help be the place where big ambitious work can happen, be they visual arts, dance, or we've got Bangarra, I guess, but where can there be other things around the place as well? And that this Signature Works has been really about bringing partnerships together and really growing people's ambitions. Anyway, we should just move on to our speakers then. If we get to the next slide, thanks, Michelle. Everyone's saying that we're deadly hosts. Oh, no, that's Zane Saunders. Oh, he's just blowing smoke, that fella. But Jason Parsfield said, yes, it's a good one to have this deadly panel as well. I might do this one. This is Andrea Jackson.
Yeah.
People might know Andrea, writer, director, clown as well, thinker, policymaker. She's really helped shape a lot of some very significant works in the genre of Indigenous theatre, but also beyond that, as her role as artistic director of Melbourne Workers Theatre for one point there, and also her opportunities and what she did with Mugalan most recently. Anyway, she's got a huge CV and a wonderful brain, as well as just a wonderful heart that she brings to all of her work. Andrea, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Oh, are you
Thanks,
on?
Wesley.
There we are. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can see and hear you now. Let's hand over to you, and you just tell Michelle when to move on to the next slide.
Yes, thank you. Michelle, yes, you can move on to the next slide. And hi everyone, greetings on Dark and Jung country here. I pay my respects, and thanks Liana and Wesley for facilitating this, and the Osco. It's just so great to be networked with so many people during this time. I certainly know in the first 3-4 weeks I was jumping onto this all the time just to connect in, and there was a sense of panic, but just a beautiful assurance of just chatting with everyone in the room and knowing, you know, that we're all connected still, even though we've got to stay at home still at the moment. So so I'm a theatre maker. I've been doing this for, nearly 30 years, practicing as a writer, a director and a producer of making new work for stage. I'm a sometimes curator, and I use my theatrical sensibility to make spaces with visual artists, and I'm also sometimes a very reluctant performer. And Wesley, you reminded me of my clowning days. Please don't. Oogity boogity. So this is a photo of me and Elise Hurst, and we co-wrote a show together called Bright World, and Elise was writing about her family's escape from Nazism, and I was writing about my great-great-uncle William Cooper, who led a delegation of blackfellas who marched to the German embassy in Melbourne and protested about the mistreatment of Jewish people. And it was the first non-Jewish protest in the entire world, and it was led by blackfellas. So, and that's us having an argument about Kevin Malloy, who's at the back wearing a Kevin is white T-shirt, and we were arguing about whether he should be playing a black role. Anyway, lots of fun. We can move on to the next slide. Look, about 90% of my work really is about telling Yorta and Gunaikurnai stories for stage, and working with other First Nations to platform their stories as well. I'm really interested in bringing people together in a room, the lived experience, the beating hearts and minds in the space, and how we interact with our audiences and our communities. And that's why this period of time is so hard for us, because ultimately the thing that we do is for live performance, and we need people. And I think there's been some really great online performance events, but there still just is nothing like being in a room with so many mob and audience members and sharing your work. So, I am really interested in bringing cultural and ceremonial practice to the stage and putting it in a performance setting. And, I've done that to varying degrees of success over the years, but I am really interested in that, and that's why I do it. And I'm really interested in language and activating language, particularly our languages, Yorta and Gunaikurnai, they're remnant languages, so the words that we got are really sacred and precious, and I just love being able to activate them in performance. And in that way, it's a great way for us to learn to put them in our mouths again as well, and I think theatre provides a really good space for that as well. I'm interested in history and bringing history into contemporary settings and stuffing around with time, what are notions of dreaming and what's real and what's unreal. And I think that we as blackfella artists, we really prompt and stir in that space, and that's really exciting for me as well. And I'm really interested in retelling of history and the telling of black truth. I mean, that's something that's really important for us, and I think that we're sort of in this country that's tried to disappear us, and so whatever we can do, I think, as theatre makers and performers and writers to keep our voice and our culture strong, well, then we've got to do it. At the moment, I'm writing a play called The Black Woman of Gippsland, and I've been doing that through the Melbourne Theatre Company residency, and it's an event that happened on my grandmother's Gunaikurnai country, where a white woman of Gippsland, as she became known, was said to have been shipwrecked on our shores and was kidnapped by a group of Gunaikurnai people. And when colonial Victoria heard about this, they sent out expedition search parties and basically killed and dispossessed land in this so-called search, and grabbed a man called Bungalini, who they accused of kidnapping this woman who they didn't see, nobody found ever. And they took him back to Narre Warren and then to Melbourne, and he was sadly our first Aboriginal death in custody on my grandmother's country. So I think, with this Black Lives Matter movement that we are feeling so painfully here in our country at the moment, I think there's never been a better and greater and more stronger time for us to keep telling our experiences as they are, because, the war is still real, I suppose. And I'm a bit angry at the moment because yesterday on Gunaikurnai country, the local council decided to keep 2 monuments to Angus McMillan, who is the so-called father of Gippsland, but he was involved in 8 massacres on my grandmother's country. And that council have decided to keep memorialising this man. I'm infuriated. And, that government that governs over our people on our country thinks it's okay to memorialise somebody who led 8 massacres against us. So I'm going to write something about that really soon, and I think that's why we've got to keep doing what we've got to do. And next slide, please. But in the meantime, I've been involved in this signature work, and oh my goodness, what a great opportunity and a thing to be able to do at this time in my career. Like, there's so many times I want to give it up, and when this opportunity came up, I'm like, yeah, well, what is a signature work and what can I kind of do before I decide to lay down the pen? And so I've been working on this project, Sunshine Supergirl, which tells the really beautiful, inspiring story of Yvonne Goolagong Cawley. It's been 4 years in the making. We've been through a really extensive research and family consultation phase. I've gone on to Wiradjuri country, and I've been to these really important places that are important to Yvonne and her family. And we were casting and just completed our casting. We're about to start designing when COVID hit. And so everything kind of came to a bit of a screeching halt, and I managed to have a couple of meetings with my set and costume designer, Romney Harper, and then suddenly everything had to be done on Zoom, and we're wrangling budgets and doing production meetings and trying to design via Zoom. So it's been really challenging. And I think the thing about Zoom is that, you know, particularly when you're designing, because you just want to have that time where you just sit in a room with your designer and just think for a little while, or you go, oh, my brain's melting, can we just walk around the block? And you kind of can't do that on Zoom. You know, you kind of have this forced focus. So yeah, and I was due to go to Banff and participate in a First Nations writing circle in April, and that was cancelled. We were in early discussions with getting the work over to London and Paris next year, which coincides with Yvonne's 50th anniversary Wimbledon win and Paris French Open win, and suddenly that has come to a screeching halt. It's been really difficult with the UK. Obviously, London is really copping it with this virus, and they're in a very different place to us. Whereas we can still work from home, actually legally they can't even operate as businesses. So everything's just really stopped. You know, we're due to go over and have some face-to-face meetings and do some site reconnaissance, and we just haven't been able to do that. And, you know, look, I guess when I started writing this 4 years ago, if I was to anticipate, you know, a global pandemic happening just on the eve of getting this work out, you know, no one would have ever foresaw what has come to pass. So, but look, I guess the good thing out of it is that everyone's in the same boat. Do you know what I mean? There's no point stressing about it because we're all in the same boat, you know. So it's just a matter of letting it go. I'm really lucky I've got producers in Performing Lines, and Marianne and Alice and Dean have been so fantastic in just keeping all the balls up in the air. We are sticking to schedule, like we are doggedly sticking to schedule, and we're still doing what we're doing, and we're doing it all by Zoom. And I guess for the team and everyone at Performing Lines, this sunshine, it's like the sun at the light of this big, you know, long dark tunnel, and we're really looking forward to coming out and being able to show it to the world as well. So can I have the next slide? So this is an ambitious project. It's huge, and like I say, we've been doing it for 4 years, and it's looking to, you know, meld storytelling with really complex choreography. And, you know, I've been working really closely with the wonderful Vicky Van Hoot, who has come up with the original movement concept for the work. So, you know, this is a work where the dancers need to act and the actors need to dance, really. And we've been really tussling with how, you know, theatre and dance can work together. And we have very different practices, actually. And, you know, if we had, you know, the European model where you can work on something together for 18 weeks, God, I wish we could have that, you know, because the work is really, really intricate, and the choreography is complex, and it really needs to be, because we're telling the work of a national icon. We need to be able to, as artists, be as good as a #1 tennis player, as the best in the world. So really that's what we've been aiming to do for the last sort of 2 years. We've got to represent world-class athleticism, and we've got to bring our black excellence to the table, basically. So it's a massive challenge. I mean, like I say, she's a national icon and she's a living legend, so I feel a lot of pressure. And her story hasn't been told on stage before, and it's really important that we tell it well and we tell it right. And also that we don't compromise and we don't make it light and fluffy too, that it's got to have these hard moments in it too. And it does require this elite level of fitness as well. Next slide, please. So the play is set in Traverse, and the wonderful Romany Harper has been working on the set with me. And you'll see it's in Traverse. So, you know, really it's about creating something that feels spectacular, like it's an event. People are going to come into this space, and it's not going to be like your normal Proth Arch sort of theatre space. We are telling Yvonne's story, and it's being played out on the court, essentially. And I think one of our, you know, and we want it to feel spectacular and big, you know. And the idea with this really is that it starts with the clay and the red earth of her home, because this is where she came from and this is where she always comes back to as well. And I've really stuck to my guns about wanting this to be in the world of a sports arena, even though I know most places have a cross-arch space. And I'm just really pleased that, you know, the presenters and festivals that we've been talking to are really have come up to the plate, like they really accept the challenge of it themselves. And so, for example, Melbourne Theatre Company are investing, you know, huge resources to thrust us right into the space of the Sumner Theatre, and they're going to put 9 rows on the stage, and the wonderful Rainer at Griffith. We plan to premiere at Griffith on Wiradjuri country. The world premiere is going to happen in her hometown, or Goolagong Central, I call it. And she's putting us in a big basketball court. So everyone's sort of got on board to think laterally so that we can create this really beautiful for our audience as well. The next slide. So we've been working with Mick Grucci as well, and we're looking at overhead projections. So you know, so that this court is like a magic carpet, you know, that we can be in the clouds 1 minute, we can be on the red dirt of Barellan, and then in the next instance we're in the, you know, the green of Wimbledon in London. So it's really designed to sort of move really fluidly and to really you know, support and encourage the physical fluidity of the work, like the immense physicality of the work, because that's Yvonne's language, and she was, you know, she reached an elite level of that. And so as artists, we are asking ourselves to get ourselves to that elite place as well. I mean, she was our first Aboriginal women's world champion, and, you know, and obviously that's really, really, you know, after Lionel Rose, obviously that's really worth celebrating, and we really want to be able to do that to the absolute best of our abilities. So we're still, like I say, we're still going to schedule the Wiradjuri performance is going to be delayed by 3 weeks, so that just allows Rainer to catch up now and gives us 3 weeks breathing space. But we're due to open in Griffith in October, and then we pack up and travel down to Melbourne and have our 4-week season down there from the 20th of November to the 19th of December. But our gorgeous cast, everybody is raring to go. Jax Cornforth, who got married up and now I've forgotten her surname, she's going to kill me. She got married to that really great dancer. Anyway, she's bought one of those tennis balls on a string, so she's out on her driveway practicing her tennis technique. And Katina Olsen, who's going to be our movement director, has sent everyone, you know, a rigid workout to do every week now via, you know, online workout, and they're really getting fit now, you know, and getting their bodies and minds really ready to do this show. And I'm just really looking forward to, you know, to sharing it with the world, because I think when we come out of all of this, we're going to be so desperate to get together again and really look at a story that's beautiful and heartening and hopeful for this nation. And I just want to show you, I've got, I don't know whether you can see this, but I've got my little Yvonne, oh, where's my video? I've turned it off.
Oh, we won't be able to see you because we're in this other, you have to
okay, so I've got my
describe it to us.
Yvonne paper doll little thing that I'm using on my set model, and my little umpire's chair, and my little tennis net. And I'm really looking forward to having, you know, real live people that I can work with. But for the minute, I've got my little set model, and I've been dreaming and working and moving these little things around, and really looking forward to getting this baby up.
Oh, so I'm looking so forward to it. There's some things in the chat there. People just saying, congratulations, sounds amazing. I put a little thing there. I need a rigid workout as well. So send that through to me. I think this kind of COVID-19 world, but also some great conversation about, getting outside of the expectations of what white theatre often will ask of us, and kind of going into somewhere else. People saying, oh, this is a modern Bora ring to tell stories in a different way. and just generally sense saying to how exciting it is to tell these stories. Vicky Cousins has just come in saying she loves your work, Andrea, and she wants a rigid workout as well. Lots of people wanting the rigid workout. Actually, maybe this is the little side hustle you could do, saying here's your Yvonne Goolagong workout to get rid of that COVID-19 flab that I've put on. Anyway, I can't talk about anyone else, but as I've been, perfecting my CWA scone making skills and sitting still. And I love this story too. I talk about CWA because, she was out there. She was, Yvonne was there in the country and got all the support of her community to just keep going further and further. A little like Ash Barty now too, in that sense of how it all comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and that's what's such a beautiful story. I mean, there's parts of Australia where there's a 90% black youth detention rate. I mean, this is horrendous, but here we are in Barellan, in this town, the only black family there. There were 8 kids, and they saw her talent and they got her around her, and her family also made a massive sacrifice for her to leave, her hometown at the age of 14 so that she could move to the city and get better as well. So, yeah, it's a really heartening story. And when you go and visit Barellan, they are so proud of their home, their homegrown star. They really are. And so, yeah, it's given us hope. It's like, well, what Australia can be when they really honour our young black talent and get behind them and encourage them to be the best that they can possibly be, So this is why I love this story and I can't wait to get it up.
You've raised a few questions in the Q&A box. I'll just kind of take some time to talk about now. Val McGrath saying she'd like to know how they can get help to get a centre in the South Burnett where we can promote and showcase and share shows, arts like this in our region. Really important to do. And also Sharina Clanton just writing here about some of the challenging ideas she wants to raise about the invisibility of paradigms that are at play when we're utilising digital and Western platforms to create further awareness surrounding our Indigenous lens and truths. How do you ensure that our writings and images are referenced accordingly, including IP laws and appropriate protocols adhered to? How do we make sure we control these stories along the way? Andrew, I'm going to ask you this question. What support avenues are available for if you're the only Indigenous person in that room? How do you support and look after these stories to make sure they're told well and informed? And that, especially working in non-Indigenous environments, how do you champion them and make sure they don't get taken away from you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a really important question, and I think you've got to be really, you've got to be really upfront with those people who want to work with you because you're providing them with an immense gift. It's a real privilege for them to work with your material, but you do have to be very clear from the word go, importantly that it's not my individual material, that it has, that I've got family and communal clan responsibilities as well. And often if I'm in an early work and I'm working in a non-Indigenous institution, I often I insist that an elder, a cultural authoritarian, is a paid member of the team and they're in the room, so if any questions happen, you just go straight to the source, and generally if I make that request, people understand and appreciate the importance of that. And it's just like, oh my goodness, if you can have an elder in the room, set them up, get them a comfy chair and, lots of cups of tea on tap. And, that authoritarian is a really important thing in the room, And then, of course, you've got all those other questions about the IP and the, copyright and all of that sort of stuff that you have to kind of continue to negotiate as well in performance. And, if it's a written piece or a visual piece of material, it's something that you have to really protect and be careful of and negotiate that with family groups as well.
We might bring up some of Sharina's ideas later and we've got everyone's talking as well.
Wesley, I'd just like to ask Andrea, how does Yvonne feel about the play?
Good, I think. I mean, you know, they didn't know me from a bar of soap. So, you know, to
How
them...
do you enter those spaces? You know, she's such a famous, iconic...
I tracked her down through the black grapevine, you know, and I cold called, you know, and you can't get through to her directly. You've got to, you know, her husband, manager, Roger, and you talk through him, and then we got meetings together. And yeah, look, I think she's excited by it and chuffed, but also nervous about it too, and, you know, and anxious and concerned, you know, making sure that we're going to do it right as well. So it's been incredibly nerve-wracking, you know, because I'm just so in awe of her, and yet I need to be able to work with her as an equal as well, and to bring my expertise. You know, so, okay, you're the number one tennis player, but I do know about storytelling and drama and structure. So for people that don't really know theatre very well, you kind of have to explain, you know, these are the sort of things that we can do, the sort of magic that we can make happen with your story. So, yeah, it's extremely nerve-wracking, but I'm so pleased that they've encouraged the work, and they've been really critical and honest, and we've had this really beautiful exchange that's created hopefully something that they'll be happy with, I hope.
Fantastic. So Yvonne's had input into
Liana, is it?
Oh, I think she's going to say she's
not the script per se. But
yes, they have, absolutely. Like, it's been so important to me that they endorse the work, and also there's some really sensitive political material as well that needed to be, you know, negotiated. And so, yeah, they've been very closely reading and feedbacking very robustly. And then we have a tete-a-tete about, you know, what I'm prepared to change and what I'm not prepared to change as well. So, yeah, and I think they've enjoyed the process, actually. I think they've really enjoyed it.
We need to move on, I think, so we can hear from the other two speakers and give them a time to speak. It's a fantastic project. Thank you so much, Andrea. We might move to the next slide. Leah, do you want to introduce, even the next slide after that? Oh, there we go. Do you want to introduce our next artist and speaker?
Oh, yes. Gives me great pleasure, actually, to introduce Zane Saunders. Zane is Javakai.
No.
Sorry, Zane. Sorry, I'm just moving the thing here. You're from Far North Queensland?
Not originally, but I grew up here. I was born in Cairns, in Far North, and grew up in Javakai country, Kuranda, in the rainforest. So It's like home, but my ancestry links are back to Bachelor people at Fraser Island, Gungari, my grandfather, sort of out where Roma or Mitchell area there, and Jarawia, my father's people, around Dalby there, Jimbo Station, around that area. So, yeah.
So Zane's a performance artist and has been a part of our signature program as well. Zane, I'm going to hand it over to you and get you to ask Michelle to drive your slides.
Okay then, thank you, Leanne. Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge the country I'm on, the Javakai country, and elders past and present. And I thank Australia Council for having me here, being a part of this roundtable discussion, and host Wesley and Leanne and others that has made it possible. I'll sort of talk about myself. I'm a interdependent artist, so not independent artist, but interdependent artist, both performing and visual arts. The COVID experience has impacted on me both personally and through my practice. And so my signature work project is called Spirit. And the Spirit project was conceived from my participation in the 2016 Signature Works Innovation Lab Sydney. And the concept of Spirit is embrace, reimagine, and re-implement world Indigenous contextualized cultural and spiritual practices. A bit of a mouthful there. Undertaking foundational work allowed robust critical discourse and successful creative outcomes to occur. Research led to opportunities for key learning, understanding, and artistic development. Opportunities such as undertaking the Milparanga Leadership Program, which is a partnership program with the Australian Council for the Arts and the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation. Other initiatives, the Australian Council's mentorship program, whom I had the privilege of being mentored by Director from Dance North, Kyle Page, back in 2017. Attendance and exposure to major events like Yurumboy, that was really great for me to experience and see what was going on there. The APAM, the Australian Performing Arts Market, again, all of this has sort of contributed to my focus and me building my work and my creative. So 2 presentations at Cairns Indigenous Art Fair, so back in 2017 and 2018, plus exhibit and performance residency at Kick Arts back in 2018 as well. Art residency at Dance North, 2018, 2019, and 2020. My latest work in progress for its second iteration for Virtual CIAP 2020, Cure, is a performance piece that was first performed in residency at the Judith Wright Centre of Contemporary Arts, late 2019, Brisbane. So currently also I'm participating in the Australian Council for the Arts Custodianship Program. Through connecting and consultation with cultural peers, through field trip explorations, various productions, travel courses and workshops, all these experiences inform my journey and processes and are the basis of the project Cure. The moral compass with the right and wrong rainbow became the metaphor for the project Cure narrative. Largely, the signature funds allowed me to design and produce a large-scale engineered mechanical prototype that I could perform on and with. Through leveraging the signature funds, I was able to attract Arts Queensland support for residency and secure production and administrative support from creative producers Bone Map. This gave me time and space to experiment with the prototype, present the idea of spirit and cure, getting back to contextualized Indigenous practice and away from industrialized agriculture and organized religion practices. Form new collaborations and regenerate networks. I received positive peer and audience feedback. Lessons learned from the Signature Works Program initiative is the amount of extensive and exhaustive measures of research that goes into producing a high caliber signature artworks and opportunities for exploration and personal development. I had several aims with my signature work process. Community development, or community reinvestment, I should say, developing Indigenous audiences, contributing to the Indigenous conversations, encouraging sustainable change to Indigenous narratives by producing high quality polished artworks, cultural maintenance and development, artists and personal investment development, mechanized sculptural elements. What has made my signature works experience successful thus far is because I have a great team of people around me, individuals and organizations that have helped and continue to help my signature works journey. Bone Map, creative producers Rebecca Udall and Russell Millage, Miriam Carter, the Australian Council, for the arts and their various allied partnership programs and initiatives. Art Queensland, Kyle Page, Dance North, Cameron Dale, and other important industry and art creatives. The knowledge I've gained through my signature works program is sometimes it's not about me creating the work, but directing others to help produce it. When your time can be best utilized on other tasks and roles, it's okay to delegate and relinquish control. It gave me an opportunity to explore in a professional context ideas and materials and the philosophy, and have some important conversations with peers such as Judy Watson and Richard Bell, and connect with urban people in key roles such as Shannon Brett and Miranda Donnelly, among others. I was able to take on different roles, learn about how to frame my work, how to write about it, and speak in a concise way about complex ideas and thoughts. Through this process, I could afford to take bigger risks with opportunities to invest more in ideas in a considered way. To take static installation ideas from early prototypical elements into kinetic mode that could self-articulate with mechanics. It allowed me to connect with people and establish networks and begin to build a profile that could further my work and practice. So in summary, the Signature Works program experience or focus for me wasn't about producing high quality art show experience in a professional venue setting, even though I did, and I strive to do that. For me, there was these critical areas of focus that really mattered in allowing the work and my practice to continue to develop and proceed towards producing signature works standards in the end.
Thanks, Zane. That's pretty full on. Just tell us a little bit about where you've been doing these performances. You were talking about Kick Arts, but I also know you did some work in New York as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess to get on their radar, the Australia Council to be chosen for the Signature Works program, I went over, I think it was a scholarship or something, some program over to New York. At first it was a 3-month residency, I think, in Connecticut, but as you do, you go to dinner with the Australia Council board, and they made the suggestion to try New York, and so I was pretty open to that experience. And yes, it was an amazing experience there, being with really great artists and performers from around the world. So.
And in terms of the work that you're making now, just like these images that we've been seeing, they've really progressed as well. How has your practice as an artist changed over the last, let's say, 5-10 years in terms of making new work, and how are the different influences affected you in your work as well?
I think the development of the work in a big way, having the time and financial backing to explore some of my ideas in a bigger way, producing sort of large installation sculptural pieces and having them mechanized. So that really, that's something I really got from this Signature Works experience. And for myself personally, it sort of gave me the opportunity to not only look at my artwork, but myself as a person and also as an artist, and my practice. So, you know, you're investing a lot of time and effort to, or energy to really commit and create things and really make it happen.
Well, Andrea alluded to this as well. Andrea was saying, you know, about different feedback, in this case, Yvonne Goolagong, but how do you deal with criticism? How do you deal with people who, you know, are trying to help you make the show better or clearer or whatever? What happens when people come and tell you their opinion of what you're doing?
I think you've got to be open, even though sometimes it may hurt. And I am a quite sensitive person, so watch out, otherwise, no more. But yeah, you just got to be open to, I found, and not be too precious about your work too, sometimes, for it to be explored and discussed and sort of gain other people's insight, but also for yourself to grow as well and the work to grow. So it's not only about producing, but how it's received, I think, which is important. Sometimes for me, well, most of the times doing the performance type work, it's a spiritual process. So, and sometimes I don't know the work I'm producing in the past, and sometimes now probably, but because a lot of the work I normally do is quite improvised, but these are more thought out, given more time, and so yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for that. Some interesting conversations. Lots of people saying that the images are really quite amazing, what you're doing. People asking whether it's touring or not. Some beautiful, stunning images, the work itself. And everything Zane is saying supports the concept that the arts enable people to think in non-constricted, freeing ways. That's Davina Woods talking there. I'm just aware of the time because it'd be great to get all three of you to have a bit of a chat. We might move on to Gina Williams. Leanne, you want to take us to Gina?
Yes. Hi, Gina. How are you over in WA there?
I'm well. I'm happy to be here.
And thank you for being here, Gina. I'm going to hand it straight over to you to talk about the wonderful work that you've been doing through your signature opportunities.
Okay, so, well, that's me. I'm a singer-songwriter. I work almost exclusively with Nyungar language. The Nyungar nation comprises 40,000 people, less than 1%, less than 400 people are recognised as fluent speakers of the language. So this is my obsession and my passion, and it's been my lifeline on more than one occasion. So I was part of the original Signature Works cohort, and my original concept was to write a single piece with language to be performed with a symphony orchestra. But there were a few kind of different starts to the project. What we've actually landed on, and when I say we, I work with, I collaborate with a guitarist, my best friend named Guy Gauss. We've been working together for 12 years now, so he's an important part of this project as well, even though I'm the creative, I have creative control over it. What we ended up landing on was a 4-part song cycle, which covers the 4 principles of Cohort, Mort, Buja and Kurlunga. So heart, family, land and children, but more than that, it's about legacy. These principles inform all aspects of my creative practice and my business, and also it means that we have a really secure anchor, so that the work is always embedded in something deeper and more substantial than songwriting, because what we do is not just music and songwriting. We started the song cycle with Kurlunga because I really wanted to establish this song cycle as a legacy work. So if you want to show the next slide, the premise of the work was that, our village is burnt down, so what's the responsibility of those who remain and remember? And I believe that my responsibility as an artist in that situation is to record, rebuild and to share language through music, because something happens when you sing your language, and children especially sing before they speak, they dance before they walk. So I think that that's a really important thing to be mindful of. So originally the work, we did partner with a symphony orchestra, but what we very quickly realised was that we were working with a very unwieldy beast that didn't give a rat's bottom about our sensitivities or sensibilities around the language. They treated us like pop stars, their words, not ours. We argued that we weren't pop stars. And so eventually I realised that the closer I got to Planet Symphony Orchestra, the more ill-equipped I was for that particular journey. My biggest risk at that time was that we had made a commitment to present the work at the Perth International Arts Festival. But ultimately, you know, the partnership really didn't feel like a partnership. And also, I have to say, creatively, I came to realise that the work that we had written was complete with just the string quartet and piano. And by having it as a smaller unit, we were able to highlight the beauty and put language front and centre without drowning it out and making it yet another orchestral work where language is almost second place. The amazing thing was that we thought the orchestra work being our ticket to the festival, but Ian Grandage, beautiful Ian Grandage, he called me like within 24 hours of us stepping off from the partnership and said, you know, I really love your work. I love what you do. It's deeply considered. And so we would like to still present the work. So Guy and I then thought about where we might place the work. I've always been committed to bringing language into spaces where Aboriginal people were once forbidden. So the obvious thought for me was to take it into the ballroom at Government House here in Perth. So we did that. If you want to show the next slide, you'll see that that's from the premiere of the work. It was a sold out show, which was pretty amazing. And then as a result, Ian Grandage and the reps from Government House Foundation, they contacted us the next morning and asked us to consider committing to rolling out our other the rest of the 4 principles as part of the Festival of Perth. So that was great because it secured our work. It means that we've got a gig every year on the 13th of February. So the next works will be next year. We release Court at Government House, and then following that we have more family or community, the people that we choose as our family, which I'm planning to write as a choral work, so working with various choirs. And then we want to finish with a big celebration of Budja, because I want to get those shardy sippers from the western suburbs who all come to these festivals. I want them to get them to take their shoes off and connect with land. The great irony is that Kurlinga, our work, because of that, the strength of that, we've now received commissions from both the WA Opera and the WA Ballet, and both of these works will be using symphony orchestras, but we completely own the commissions and we have complete creative control over that. So, you know, I'm thinking about working, you know, we're talking about working with large organisations and how do we maintain our IP. I think the hardest thing is that we want to give people our treasures because we love them, but it's counterintuitive to walk away. But I think for us, walking away from it was actually the strongest thing we could have done because it really sent a very clear message that we refuse to be passengers in this journey, that we want to drive the bus. And, you know, you're right in what you were saying, Andrea, what we're giving people is a real gift. And so, you know, if we're not valuing that and we're not committed to that, then we can't expect anyone else to be. Our work is legacy work. If you want to go to the next slide. In the past 12 months or so, we've done 280 schools incursions across the country. A while back, I wrote a little welcome song called Wunju, which over time we've taught to about 750,000 people. Our passion project is now to work with other language holders around the world to have this song translated and gifted to different communities, because this song has been really good to me. And so far we've got Nyungar, Wajiri in the Midwest, we've got a Wongatha version in the Goldfields, we've got Matu, Walpri, Mulngana, which is an extinct language, but they're using it as part of a revival project. Dalngani in the Pilbara, Bunjima, Pete Warren in Victoria, thanks to Uncle Lockie, as well as English, French, German, Indonesian, Spanish, Italian, and I can sing it to you in Japanese. So I guess, you know, the call to action, if you're a language holder, if you'd like to work with us, and, you know, you can feel free to get in touch via the website, and we'd really love to gift you with this song. And then, you know, once you translate it, it's yours, so you can use it and teach it. It's yours to use however you feel. I'm going to pop a little clip in the chat section for everybody, so you can yeah, look, I'm up for Pitjantjatjara as well if you want to translate it. I'd love you to use it. You know, this song, like I said, it's been really good. So we're still figuring this out. So if you look at the next slide, consultation with elders and family is really key for us. All our work, we've been working with a group of elders here in Boorloo in Perth for many, many years, and nothing gets released without them checking it. And it's not just like, we don't just present them with a final product. There's a consultative process that happens right from the get-go. We make sure that, because if they're not happy, then we've doubly lost. So we want to make sure that everybody, is happy with what we do. I welcome feedback. We always get told that our work is really beautiful. So that's, it's good to be challenged over it. I don't always take everybody's advice, because sometimes some people don't really know what they're talking about. They just want to have a grumble. But for the most part, we try and work with people. The COVID, I just want to talk quickly about COVID. It's been really tricky for me, because I work mostly in isolation, and also I'm immunosuppressive, so I've really not been allowed to go out at all. And as the world's biggest catastrophic overthinker, it's been really, really tricky. We made a conscious decision not to upload our music to give away, which was really hard. Again, it was really counterintuitive, because everyone we knew was doing that, but we didn't want to give our treasures away. And I think the internet gets enough free content, and social media get enough free kicks from us. As a result, our album sales they've remained really steady. And what people are now starting to realise is, once you give it away, you can't take it back. So our biggest revelation was, you can have time or you can have money. So while we've had time, we've charted and scored our work and secured a book deal with Magabala Books, who will publish our anthology as another language resource, which I think is really wonderful, because we're looking at new and different ways, and also trying to build a business model that actually sustains us without, because we can't gig at the moment. Well, we're doing small house concerts, but gigging and airplay are our mainstays. So that's been really tricky. And the other thing is that this has brought a new structure, and that's become really, really important. And we talk about self-care and stuff. So I just want to share with you that structure is a really big self-care thing for artists. Managing what we can control means that we don't we're not as easily sucked into the rabbit holes that distract us, and those things are big things. So I try and exercise for an hour a day. I write for 2 hours a day, and I spend an hour either researching word lists or looking at other language resources to see what people are doing. So that's kind of how we've navigated the COVID experience. But it means that, when we come back, we had invites to perform at the Jaipur Literary Festival, which is the largest literary festival in the world. As it turned out, we were playing, and the artistic director was in the audience, and he stood up in front of everyone at the end of our show and invited us to Jaipur. It was the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen. And 14 weeks ago, we were Artist of the Year at Port Fairy, and had secured touring to America and Canada and to Europe, these opportunities to perform. So, that stuff hasn't gone away, but it's on hold. And as musos, you've got to be constantly, so we've used this time to focus on the other 4 principles, so that we know that our song cycle and the narrative that goes with that will work. So when we're ready to come out of hiding, then hopefully that we'll be able to, do that, and it doesn't break our practice, doesn't cause any unnecessary pauses in our practice. We're ready to rock and roll when the rest of the world is. I think, Andrea, what you said, that whole pushing through regardless is really, really important. We've had to actually behave as though nothing's changed in our creative practice, because really, otherwise it's, you kind of lose twice, in that you stop working, and then you're behind the 8 ball because you've got no product when everyone else is ready to go again. So that's me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks, Gina. I mean, a couple of things in the chat there just about, yes, you need to have backbone. You need to know why you're doing it and when you're doing it. Actually, we're going to go into turning on so we can see each other's faces now. So whoever's speaking will have the camera for the audience. But this sense too of a little through line there about community ownership as well, that it's not always about the one person. It's not always about that individual. Gina, you've talked about that and having to make sure that you protect that. Not everyone should be able to have access to that knowledge and practice. What's your feeling on that?
I think that, you know, like we need our allies. We need to be able to work with people, and I'm really happy to work with people. What I don't want to have is my treasure taken, bent out of shape, and us relegated into some kind of creative corner. You know, and like I said, it was the most heartbreaking thing was when, you know, this large organisation was like, oh yeah, we want to own these songs and we'll sell them back to you. And I was like, we've done all the heavy lifting here. You know, we're presenting you with charts and scores and we've done everything today, and you can't have our treasures, I'm sorry. And they're going, oh, but this is what we do with the pop stars. And that argument, like I couldn't believe that was what they thought of our music, that's how they considered our music. So I you know, and in all of this, you know, my uncle Tom Hayden is a beautiful Balladog elder out in Kellerberrin. He gifted me with the 4 principles. Auntie Roma Winmar is a really strong language breeder. She's a queen, in fact. You know, there's all these really powerful people that work with us and stand with us, and I can't disappear from them. So we have deep responsibility to the communities that we're working with, and I don't answer to a large organisation. I answer to my elders, and that's the bench. That's the mark.
Mm. We've got Joseph Williams writing in here too, saying he's from Tennant Creek and saying the song program sounds great. I'd like to hear more about it. I think, Joseph, check out Gina. You've got a website. I think we can.
Yeah, I'll type it in.
Yeah, type it in so that the website's there, Joseph. You can contact Gina and get some more information about all of that work. Lots of people saying about how you stand up for things, which is very interesting. I might ask Zane and Andrea about that too. Like those moments where you actually have to stand up, let's say Zane, and go, actually, I don't want that to happen. It has to happen in this way because that's the cultural authority. And, you know, you're answerable, whereas some others are not answerable to this. What's your feeling, Zane? Just make sure you come off mute there for us to speak.
Yes, it is important that you do stand your ground, and that you're happy with your work and how it's being presented. I know sometimes you're challenged by compromises at times, but I guess for me, for this journey, it's about getting that exposure. I've sort of learned to grow and understand and sort of have faith in myself, but also accountability, I guess. I guess like Gina was saying, to our elders or our communities, we sort of answer back to. Though sometimes I must say the work I do, my approach is quite contemporary and probably doesn't have that traditional structure. So in a way, sometimes I can go the other way. I challenge certain things, I guess, culturally, and I could be wrong and I could be called out, you know, but it's just,
yeah,
that's the process.
But horses for courses that way. Andrea, maybe it's much clearer. Here's the subject of your storytelling. She's alive, and she can tell you right to your face what you can and can't do. Do you find that happens?
Yeah, look, for this particular project, it's been quite unusual like that. I mean, normally if I'm writing my own family story, I'm negotiating my family, you know, not one person who's not from my mob. So that's been quite a new experience for me as well. But yeah, I think you've got to keep the conversation going and keep the respect going, you know, what Zane said before about keeping an open mind as well, but also knowing, yeah, look, we do have a responsibility to tell her story really well as well. And so I just come to the task as if it's one of my own family stories, and I know what would happen if I got it wrong. I'd have, you know, all my mob chasing me down after the show saying that you got it wrong. So, yeah, so it's a constant negotiation, I think, but sometimes you got to know when to put your stand your ground, and when you know things are really important, and if need be, you know, check that out with your elders and get it backed up.
And Gina, you were saying that that's what you do basically, you have this whole process, but you knew when to stop something from going off the rails, which is really great, because so many of us feel the pressure of those large organizations and we go, oh, is it, can I, is it too late? But what was the moment where you knew, actually, now I actually have to step away from this, regardless of what that meant for the project, maybe not even going ahead?
The pop star conversation was the moment I knew, because I realised at that point that they put more value over 400-year-old pop music than they did over, you know, they were grouping us with radio artists, and, you know, for other projects that might be absolutely fine, but what we're doing is so much deeper than pop music. It's not, you know, it's not something that's readily available. And, you know, and look, make no mistake, Wes, I cried for days. Like, I was heartbroken because I realised that stepping away from it really did put the project at great risk. But I thought, you know, and Guy, he said to me, he said, don't, you know, he goes, we're doing the right thing. It doesn't feel good, but sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. You know, if we're patient and if you really, you know, if we really believe in this, then it will come back to us. And he was right. Within a couple of weeks, we were back, we were doing it. And, you know, and again, I'll reiterate that what I realised was, because they were talking about, you know, working with a 60-piece orchestra. In the end, we had 7 people on stage in Government House Ballroom, and it was just as spectacular. But what happened was that the language actually sat front and centre, which is where it has to be with my practice. It has to be. Otherwise, we would have just been buried. It would have buried us.
There's a lesson there that the spirits actually reward you from doing the right thing. You need to keep open to what the spirits are telling you and what your ancestors are saying.
I really believe in that. I really believe that the ancestors watch over this and they watch over what we do. And I think, you know, again, this goes back to those 4 principles. And the first one, you know, core, your heart. If your heart is right, then you know, it's very hard to not walk that straight path. Because I believe the ancestors lead us there. I really do.
Great.
Yeah, I agree.
We do need to kind of wrap up this little bit of the chat and get to the last little bit. Lots of support for you there, Gina, and Andrea and Zane, for all your amazing work. We might move back to the slide presentation and just get ourselves through some of the support structures that we've got in line. People will be very familiar with this slide, knowing that there are lots of responses coming through in terms of packages that you can get into, and that especially at the Australia Council, you can actually talk to a program officer and really help get your way through this. I think many people have been doing that. Next slide, thanks, Michelle. Remembering that there are some websites there. All of this material is on the Australia Council website, and you can look at this in a few days' time and look back at it, or suggest to others to come and have a little listen to some of these amazing projects and these artists who have been speaking. Next slide, thanks, Michelle. And some supports there. If you are in WA, the Lottery West can help you out, and also the Theatre Network Australia has still got their $1,000 cash, crisis cash to put out there. Check out. And another slide, thanks, Michelle. If you are finding it really tough, and what people are saying, these are great opportunities to come together, but you can talk to Beyond Blue, and there's also some resources specifically in Indigenous languages, or resources aimed at Indigenous communities in remote languages. You can grab these things from the Australia Council website. Next slide. The next one, Chosen, which is another program that the Australia Council has been running, looking at how we transfer knowledge from one generation to the next. Leanne, do you want to give us a quick little précis as we just wrap up here about Chosen and what that's all about?
Sure. So I don't think I've got that information on Chosen.
Oh, I thought it'd be on the top of your head.
I know, right? Well, you
know.
know, I can talk about Chosen.
Of course you can.
Yes, of course I can. Look, Chosen is a fantastic funding stream for our artists, and if you've got projects out there that, you know, you've been really wanting to do intergenerational projects with young people, between young people, and your elders, this is the fun for you to apply for.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Was that you, Wesley? But please look out for Chosen. You know, we are talking a lot about, you know, knowledge transfer, the importance of learning from our elders, and elders having the opportunity and the time and the space to be able to sit with younger members of the community to hand on that cultural information. So please look out for that. It's coming up, I think it was the 26th of June was the closing date for that. No, that is the next roundtable.
Next roundtable, we'll talk about Chosen and a whole range of things. And also, I'll just say I'm sharing a little, co-hosting another one of these roundtable things on Monday, which talks about the Audience Outlook Monitor, some of the work you might see from pattern makers. Get on the Australia Council website, have a look. First Nations review of some of the research that have been doing around audiences and where audiences are going, and interesting stuff around loyalty. A lot of loyalty for audiences who want to experience Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander arts and culture, and just a few facts and figures about audiences and how they want to get back into it. All right, we've got to wrap it up. We're already a little bit late. Hey, can a big thanks to Zane, Andrea, and Gina, and Leanne. Obviously, a big thanks to you. You're just the most amazing person. You just drive us through so hard to keep us on ball, on the thought, getting out there. And can I say a big thank you to everyone out there? Lots of stuff coming through in the chat saying thanks for the conversation. And we will see you next week for number 15. All right, see you soon.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Be safe. Wash your hands.